Well,
Oh boy.
we have a good one now.
We got a good one. Yeah. We are going to hear from my president, Madam Secretary Hillary Clinton. The context here, she's talking about being at Columbia University where she is teaching. Okay.
And she's teaching, by the way, she's teaching, her like co-instructor is like the dean of SIPA. It's literally a former Israeli intelligence agent, which is always omitted from her bio. But so Hillary Clinton and a former Israeli intelligence agent are leading courses in foreign affairs for hundreds of students. And I just feel for these young people.
Yeah.
It's not a class I would want to take.
Yeah.
Anyway, now she's recapping what the class was like after October 7th.
We were doing an event, and we started being protested, the dean and I and our guests, and being screamed at, being called, all kinds of names. What happened in that period? And
do you want to know what event she's referring to? She's referring to when she hosted a event to promote the fabricated Hamas rape allegations. This was at a time when Israel was carrying out its mass murder campaign in full swing, and it needed to convince the world that it could not negotiate with Hamas, that these were all just barbaric terrorists who couldn't be negotiated, and therefore it was okay to destroy the people of Gaza along with them. So Hillary Clinton and her former Israeli intelligence colleague put together this conference where they featured people like Jeffrey Gettleman, the lead author of that debunked New York Times story, to promote the rape allegations that have since been debunked. And these brave young people got up and protested them and reminded them not only that they were spreading lies, but of their own record in promoting, atrocities, sexual violence, not only in backing Israel, which carries that sexual violence, but also in places like Libya, which Hillary Clinton played a key role in destroying. So that's what she's referring to there.
And they claimed that Gaddafi was giving Viagra to his troops.
Yeah, so she has a long history in trafficking in fabricated sexual violence allegations to justify atrocities.
Yeah, she has a history of weaponizing sexual violence. It's almost like every allegation, every accusation is a confession, major projection. Yeah.
The best I can sort of unpack it is that there were already existing groups within our country, and particularly on certain campuses like Columbia, who had talking points. They had a plan for protest and disruption.
Oh my God.
I watched it sort of morph into something that was not student-led, even though students participated, but which had outside funding, outside direction.
Like what? And what's the example? Can you give one example of this? Eric Adams also talked about outside agitators, and when asked for a single example, he didn't want to give them notoriety. So I want to thank him and Hillary Clinton for being so sensitive and not pointing to a single example of what they're saying.
I mean, her well-established Russiagate playbook is to blame Russia for everything, including her loss. So is she blaming Russia here? Is she blaming Iran? I mean, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu got up before Congress and blamed Iran, saying that protesters against him are just Iran's useful idiots and funded by Iran. So who's she going with here?
She doesn't want to tell us, Aaron.
That'll maybe be revealed in her next book that she has to
shell for.
Yeah.
I still to this day, I'm not quite sure of all that was going on.
Okay. So it was a foreign plot, but we're still working out the details.
Yeah. Inspector Clinton.
Yeah. Really, it's so frustrating when you just know there's a foreign plot to brainwash college students to protest the genocide you're supporting, but you can't put your finger on exactly who it is, but you do know it's a foreign plot.
I mean, why else would people care about this except for being brainwashed by foreign powers? Yeah.
What a great prosecution witness she would make if these protesters were put on trial for being co-opted by foreign influence, and she can come in for the prosecution. Like, just say, I'm Hillary Clinton. I'm a former Secretary of State. I don't know exactly who was behind who, but I know it's there. I know it's there.
Unfortunately, I cannot give an example of it, but it's there. It's the vibe. It has a vibe, yeah.
And this, for anybody who wants a career in academia, to be like, to teach young people at a prestigious university, this is a really good tack to take, is basically become convinced that the young people are all being handled and manipulated by foreign powers. Right. So this is it's a great way to get the job.
Yeah. And of course, by the way, I want to mention that when she did the thing with Jeff, what's his name? Gettleman, Jeff Gettleman, right? That was, they did an event during their like weaponizing sexual violence thing. And that's when he said something about how he wouldn't call it evidence.
Yeah, he was wearing like his like stupid flak vest like the journalists put on to make it look important. And he's like, yeah, I don't really consider what I do gathering evidence. I'm more telling a story. Right. Yes, correct. You're telling a story to justify genocide. And it was such a scam for people who forgot this, that the Israeli woman who Gettleman presented as like the symbol of Hamas sexual violence, her family called out Gettleman for manipulating them and falsely presenting her as being a victim of sexual violence. And they pointed out it was literally impossible for her to have been the victim of sexual violence because they spoke to her shortly before she was killed on October 7th. And so the time span made it impossible. But he, with his storytelling abilities, made it appear as if she was the victim of rape. So that's who Jeffrey Gettleman is, and that's who Hillary Clinton was promoting.
I mean, I'm surprised that Gettleman didn't wear like a bulletproof vest when he spoke at Columbia, because that's how dangerous these protesters are.
Yeah, well,
it's not enough to wear a flak jacket.
According to Hillary Clinton, yes, yeah. I wonder if, does she do this in class? If someone asks her a question she doesn't like, does she accuse them of being funded by some foreign power?
Right. Yeah.
She's like, I'm not going to answer your question because it doesn't come from you. It comes from the Ayatollah. So sorry. Yeah. Next question.
Next question. Yeah.
With it. And a lot of students were caught up in that. And a lot of the videos on social media gave not just a one-sided view of the conflict, but a totally anti-Israel.
Yeah, it's called the IDF live streaming war crimes. Very one-sided.
Yeah. If I see a kid with their head blown off by Israel with U.S. weapons, I'm not seeing the other
China.
side.
Right. Yeah. You're not seeing the other side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pro-Hamas, not just pro-Palestinian view. And for me, it was distressing because, look, I have my own opinions formed over many years. I am willing to sit down and have a conversation with anybody. But it's difficult to have conversations with people who hold strong opinions with no factual and historical basis.
Which is you. That is you. You're describing yourself. You're a member of a cult. It's called Blue Anon, that believes that, for example, Russia is responsible for your victory and for every problem in the U.S. under the sun. And also, you're consistently lying about history to justify Israel's occupation and mass murder.
She knows her history and lies about it. That's her style.
And, it comes from experience. Back in the late 1990s, there was a big controversy in the U.S. It's funny to think about this now, but this was an actual controversy when Hillary Clinton made the mistake of saying that there should be a Palestinian state. And back then, things were so, even more racist, I guess, in many ways. You couldn't even say that. So she had to apologize and say she was speaking out of turn. So Hillary Clinton learned her lesson from that, I think, and internalized it from now on. She was going to completely parrot Israeli propaganda, and that's what she's done. And that's what she'll continue to do here in this interview.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, Aaron, unlike Hillary Clinton, the young kids don't know how to sell out and throw Palestine under the bus for their own political gain. That's the kind of knowledge and history familiarity that she laments that they don't have. Well, also, she referred to in her book, in one of her books, she called it an occupation. Imagine that. That was before she learned her lessons of history.
Trying to talk to students, not just at Columbia, but elsewhere, I would be met with slogans. I would be met with attacks and, very inflammatory language And when I would ask, well, what about, do you know what happened in 2000 at Camp David? No. Do you know what happened in 1947? No.
I'm supposed to believe that people chanting at Hillary Clinton were asked if they knew about what happened in 1947. They said no.
What's also amazing is she's referring to, do they know my own false tale of what happened? So 1947, is she referring to the fact that Zionist militias before Israel was even created were already ethnically cleansing hundreds of thousands of Palestinians? She's not referring to that. Is she referring, when she says what happened in 2000? She's claiming, and she said this before, that what happened then, and let's pull out for a second, Wilson, that what happened in July 2000, she's claiming that that's when Yasser Arafat walked away from this really generous peace offer that her husband, Bill Clinton, and Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak gave to Palestinians. In reality, this so-called generous peace offer would have left Israel in control of vast swaths of the occupied West Bank. So on top of stealing Israel proper, also Israel would have laid claim to vast swaths of the occupied West Bank, right, keeping all the major West Bank settlement blocks that make a Palestinian state impossible. And they were so bent on stealing Palestinian land, they wouldn't even offer Palestinians an equal land swap. So okay, we're going to take basically all this land in the West Bank, and we're going to give you it was a ratio of 9 to 1. So we're going to take 9 times the territory in the West Bank that we're willing to offer you inside Israel to compensate. So that was the so-called generous offer that Clinton offered Yasser Arafat. And they even said to him, okay, we know you really want East Jerusalem as your capital. We're not going to give you East Jerusalem, but what we're going to do is we're going to take another part, like a suburb of Jerusalem. You can rename that East Jerusalem if you want to, and that can be your capital. That was the Israeli offer, which no Palestinian could ever accept. And amazingly, the craziest thing about all this, that summit at Camp David only happened after Yasser Arafat got a promise from Bill Clinton that if the summit fails, which Arafat knew it would because he knew Israel wouldn't be offering him anything concrete, Arafat said to Clinton, my one condition is that when this fails, you do not blame me.
Right.
And Bill Clinton was like, yeah, I promise. Yeah, right. No problem. You got it. And then what happened? As soon as it failed, Clinton threw Arafat on the bus and said, yeah, Arafat walked away from this great deal. And now Hillary Clinton, 24 years later, is still repeating that lie. And it's literally blood libel, because that lie that Arafat walked away from this generous deal was used to justify Israel's ensuing crackdown on the Second Intifada and all the blood-letting since. So it really is blood libel what she's spreading here, and she's lecturing young people for not going along with it.
Yeah, and it's also, the idea, she's such this is such an example of expertocracy, this technocracy, the idea that you got to understand it and be experts in it, and anyone who's criticizing what's happening, they don't know the history. Literally, there's not a single thing of history that you need to know to oppose Israel's war crimes. What possible thing in history would make you be like, oh, you see, if I had known that, I would have been okay with Israel killing children?
It's so true. Even if it were true, what she's saying about Camp David 24 years ago, it's not. How would that justify for a second Israel harming one Palestinian, the hair on one Palestinian child's head, let alone killing them on a mass scale? It's so, it's so cynical.
Yeah.
And of course, it will never be challenged on the show.
And this is exactly what they want to do. They want to make it, oh, it's complicated, right? No, there's really nothing complicated about what's happening right now. Yeah. But I guess you shouldn't talk about, Aaron, it's actually really problematic to talk about anything or oppose what Israel's doing unless you've taken a course with Hillary Clinton. then you can open up your mouth. Yeah.
Right, I feel strong about not taking a Hillary Clinton course as an NRA member feels about having their guns taken away. For my cold dead hands, you can get me to sign up for that course.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's hear more from Hillary.
Do you know how difficult the relationships have been? No. Do you know that there are Arab Israelis?
Oh my God, they're Arab.
IDF? None of that. And this whole—
Do you know Israel's talking points? Do you know how Israel tries to whitewash its genocide and apartheid? Do you know that there are Israeli Arabs who serve in the IDF? If you knew that, you would be for bombing refugee camps. Unfortunately, you're too ignorant to support that.
By the way, the number of people, I think, who would call themselves Arab Israelis, at least who are Palestinian.
Yeah, right.
Like there are Arab Jews who are Israeli, which is different from Palestinian. But the number of Palestinians who call themselves Arab Israeli, it's I don't know. You can count them.
Self-identify that way.
Yeah, because they're Palestinians. And Israel wants to erase their Palestinian identity, so they calls them Arab Israelis. So Hillary Clinton is like trying to cite what really is. It's just it's more propaganda to pretend as if because there are Palestinians living inside Israel, because Israel didn't expel all the Palestinians. So congratulations to Israel on that. Like, thank you for not expelling every single Palestinian from the land you stole. We're supposed to think that Israel is some kind of democracy. This is just like,
I know. If only we knew, and the young people knew these talking points.
And Fareed Zakari's sitting there like, yes, wow. So taking in all this sage wisdom. Okay, this has been one of we've taken so much time to.
I know, but we got to unpack, as she says.
Everything is a lie. Everything
is
cynical.
Right.
Ugh, it's exhausting.
Whole chanting of, from the river to the sea. What does that mean? What river? What sea? That's what bothered me. And
what river? What sea? The same river and sea that the Likud party references in its charter when it says from the river to the sea there will be only Jewish rule. Okay, that same river and sea. And Palestinians are saying, by contrast, actually in that land we want freedom. Right. We want our basic rights. That's what. I mean, is she now denying that there's a river and sea?
Yeah.
In that area? I mean, it's she needs help. I'm sorry. I mean, like many Israel apologists need help, but I'm gonna fast track her.
Yeah, she's top of. We're gonna triage. Yeah, we're gonna triage.
Let's de-radicalize that Columbia University professor and everyone like her ASAP.
Yeah. It's
have the kids teach her. Honestly, the kids, like young people, take over your classes. Instruct your instructors like Hillary Clinton. Give them a proper education. They really need it. It will change their lives for the better.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, it's interesting because from the river to the sea, when people say it about Palestine, they're saying equality, like you just pointed out, and Israelis are saying ethno-nationalism. Yeah. Okay.
And I think this year has been, much quieter, a much more educational environment where people can have these conversations. The ugly.
Because they wiped out the encampments that were on campus to protest the genocide. So now it's a lot more calm. And people are scared. People are threatened with like expulsion. And,
people have been expelled. Yeah, people have been punished.
So things
JVP
are great now.
and Jewish Voice for Peace have been Jewish Voice for Peace and Students for Justice in Palestine have been banned at Columbia. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's saying like now that everyone's been either expelled and sufficiently intimidated, now we can have a rational conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Presence of anti-Semitism, not just positions against Israel. It's perfectly legitimate.
Everyone always loves saying this.
Does, and I don't agree with that country's foreign policy. That is absolutely what you should be debating at a university. This was not that. This was screaming at students who were Jewish. It was blocking their entry into classes.
Like, how about the Jewish students who joined?
Exactly.
Which was a lot of Jewish students, by the way.
Yeah, it was so anti-Semitic they had Passover seders on campus at the encampments.
Into club activities. It was nasty. And so there was something else going on here that was very troubling. And we now, have seen evidence of, obviously foreign money, foreign influence.
Where? What's the evidence?
The algorithms on TikTok, which were.
Has Fareed Zakari, he just sat there for like this whole answer, said absolutely nothing. Can we get one question, like the one Katie you just posed? Like, hey, what evidence have we seen about foreign funding for these protests?
Well, because he's learning so much from Hillary. He can't like make a comment. He has to get as much, reel in as much information as possible. Because she's such an expert. She knows something else is up. She just can't say what it is. Yeah.
Classes in session.
Yeah.
Were anti-Israel right off the bat. And so I think that a university particularly has an obligation to, of course, protect free speech.
Of course.
But also to protect students against harassment and against the kind of behavior that interfered with their learning. So that's where we are now.
Well, we got through that answer, which is a relief. And we got all the tropes. The protesters are anti-Semitic. They're foreign funded.
They're Israeli Arabs.
They don't know their history.
Right.
They don't know what a great job Bill Clinton did and just doing his best to bring peace. And the greedy Palestinians rejected his generous offer. We really got the whole spectrum there. Of Israeli propaganda. So congratulations to Hillary Clinton and Fareed Zakaria for that feat.
Yeah. Also, it's really moving that she cares so much about learning and education, which is why, of course, she's spoken out against the scholasticide in Gaza, right? The fact that there are no standing universities anymore.
She somehow forgot about that one too.
Yeah.
It's hard when you're so determined to smear your own students.
Right.
That like you can't keep everything in your head.